Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into another episode of Straight Facts Homie, the podcast where we don't argue with you, or we don't yell at you, we don't scream at you our feelings. We tell you what's happened and what's going to happen based on data, information, and historical precedent. And if you like that, and I think you do, click the like and subscribe button wherever you're getting this podcast, especially if you're viewing us on YouTube. We appreciate it. It really helps to grow the show. You know, one of the things we like to do in this show is bring you inside the locker room or inside the pitch, inside the playing surface with the people that call the games and work the games and play the games. We call it our Trusted Voices segment. And this episode's trusted voice is someone who you might not have used that term for before the start of the 2025 NFL season, but then he put on a different number and a different uniform, and Daniel Jones went from Danny Dimes to Indiana Jones, and he's off to a great start as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. How did he get there, and what are his expectations going forward? Remember, it's just a one-year contract he signed. Let's take a listen to our Trusted Voices conversation with Daniel Jones. The first thing I got to ask is, not many people get to choose their nicknames, and I thought Danny Dimes was a really good one, but I think Indiana Jones is a major upgrade. What do you think?
I'm not too picky on the nicknames. Yeah, I'm not complaining with either one of them, but I like Indiana Jones. Nice little switch up.
When you heard that, what was the first thing that went through your mind when people started calling you Indiana Jones?
I mean, obviously the movies. We watched the movies a lot as kids. Yeah, we watched the movies. So I was an Indiana Jones fan growing up. I think. Yeah, so I mean that's what went through my head, but yeah, I don't mind it at all.
I'm telling you, they're rebranding the movies. You know, Harrison Ford's aged out, so this might be a really good cross-promotional opportunity for you.
I don't know if I have much of a career in acting or anything like that, but
Well, that's what Eli Manning said, and then he stopped playing, and suddenly he's in every freaking commercial. So you might
that's
be
true. He's
following.
everywhere. Eli's everywhere now.
I feel like asking, don't you people have children? Don't you have families? Eli Payton, like, what's going on? That's a whole separate discussion. We don't need to go down that road. But this has been an amazing start for you to the season. In your wildest expectations, did you imagine it would be going this well?
I mean, I think I guess you never really know exactly how it's going to go. I think getting here, like really as early as the spring, and kind of getting around these guys and getting around the coaches here, I did really feel a sense of confidence and like, wow, we have a lot here, and the coaches are on this all on the same page, and the players are ready to go, and just being like excited about that. So I don't know if I thought what was our record going to be after 6 weeks and how that was going to play out, but I will say, like from the I feel like the first day I walked in here, I was like, wow, there's a lot going on here that's positive.
Well, you can certainly see it every week. The running game is solid. The defense is solid. The offensive line is great, and you guys are making plays. And you finally figured out you have a punter, which was nice. It took a long time to figure that out, but players. I think quarterbacks, for the most part, are judged in three areas, right? I think they're judged on third down, 2-minute drill, and the red zone. And you guys, the last 2 weeks, are a perfect 10 for 10 in converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns. How much do you guys stress that? How much do you guys talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. Those situations are huge in every game, every week across the NFL. How well you play on third down, how well you play in the red zone, taking care of the ball. I mean, all those things are things we talk about as an offense. Quarterback's important in it, but it's it's got to be everybody. I think the team, running the ball in the red zone is huge. We've been able to do that well, especially as you get tight in the 2 and 3 yard line and being able to pound it in. But a lot of that's game plan stuff too. Do you see something scheme wise you can try to take advantage of? Can you recognize the look and then execute from there? Coaches play a big part in how they scheme up the red zone stuff, and we've been able to execute it well. But yeah, I mean, I think when you think about scoring and controlling the game, being able to convert touchdowns in the red zone is a huge part of it.
It certainly is, and you got a tough test this week. You go up against the Chargers defense, a little banged up, but they're a unit that has been really good for the last couple of years. What do you see as the biggest challenge for you guys going in this week as you go back to LA for the second time already this season?
Yeah, I think you said it's a good group. I mean, I think getting into studying them last night and this morning a little bit, and we'll continue with it today. I think they're very well coached. You can tell they're disciplined. They're not misaligned. They're not blowing coverages. They're not letting guys run free. I think all those things that you see in good defenses show up on the tape, and then they've got good players across the board and guys who can make plays and get after the passer and cover in the back end. So it'll be a good group, and anytime you're playing a good quarterback like Justin Herbert, knowing that they're strong on that side of the ball too.
You're a part of a sort of a wider trend, I think, that's happened the last couple of years in the NFL, and it's quarterbacks that were drafted high one place, and for a variety of reasons, it doesn't come together, and then you realize, okay, you go to a different situation, and suddenly there are much different results. Yourself, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold. It just seems like there's been a lot of quarterbacks that have sort of found their footing, for lack of a better term, a little later on in their career. What do you think? What do you attribute that to?
For one, I mean, I think you learn a lot. You learn a lot through not winning and not playing as well, and going through some tougher things. You learn lessons the hard way maybe, and you try to take it with you and help you kind of as you go, for sure. And I think the time in New York, even the not so good times, I think were valuable that way. But I think a lot has to do with the fit too, and the team, and football's a team game. So I've really enjoyed playing with these guys here, and I've learned a lot from these coaches.
Yeah, you said when you got around the group in the spring that you noticed a few things. What were the few things that popped into your head as you were working with these guys before, preseason and training camp, that you thought, oh, this might be a really good situation?
Well, I think just the depth across the board. You look at the roster. I mean, you look at the offense. You've got a lot of veteran offensive linemen, guys who have played at a really high level. There's a really high standard in that room, and I think I noticed that quickly. I think you look at Jonathan Taylor, who's been a top running back in the league for a long time, and still certainly is that. And then receivers who all bring something different and have all played at a really high level. And I think just looking across, you're like, wow, there's a lot of good players. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's like, wow, there's a lot of good players here who are really, really keen on winning and getting this thing going. And so that, I think, was kind of what I realized when I first got here.
Yeah, and the Colts have one of the more unique situations to me in the league, is that one of their stars, for lack of a better term, is an offensive lineman. Quentin Nelson. Like, the guy is objectively hilarious, despite as well as being really, really good at his job. What is it that popped to you when you started playing with Quentin, and not only his ability, but just sort of the way he handles himself out there on the football field?
Yeah, I think I think he's kind of like what you really like want and think of what an offensive lineman should be, just like tough and a little bit mean, and is gonna mix it up. If he doesn't like something, you're gonna hear about it pretty quickly. I mean, he's just got a toughness and grit to him. And the other thing I've said that I noticed pretty early, OTAs and training camp, it's just kind of the level he holds himself to, but he holds kind of the whole room to. And it'd be, the twos or the threes would be up in practice, and someone would miss a blitz pass off, and he's telling the guy, that's unacceptable, or we can't do that. And you're like, wow, this guy really, really does care about kind of this whole offensive line being a really good group. And I thought that was impressive to me. I think he's a great leader for our team, for that room, certainly.
Yeah, and I, just in total candor here, I sort of kept my eye on Quentin since he was a high schooler, because my son played college football at Georgetown, was an offensive lineman, and he went to the Boston College camp the same time that Quentin was there. Okay. And you know how these camps go. They take guys out afterwards. Hey, let's work you out and all this kind of stuff. So Chappie was going with these guys, and he said, "Dad, there's this one kid. Like, he's just a freak show. Like I don't think I've ever seen anybody like this guy in my life. This guy is ridiculous. And it was Quentin, and obviously he went on to have a great college career. But like, my son knew right. He said, "Dad, this dude is different. Like he's just a different type of guy."
Yeah, he is. He's mentally, I think he's like exactly what you want as an offensive lineman. Physically, I mean, he's as talented as anybody. He's a tremendous player. Yeah.
Unfrozen caveman football player, basically.
Yeah.
Sea guy, pancake guy, and that's how it gets done. I was listening to another interview you did. And you said something really interesting about your time in Minnesota. And for those that may not remember, after the Giants release, you signed the practice squad there, and then was elevated to the regular squad for the end of the season. And you said it was in Minnesota where you understood how to study and prepare better.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always learning, like throughout your career, and learn different ways to do it. Every place, every system has a different thought on how they prepare. In Minnesota, the system, that Kevin and those guys run, is very. It puts a lot on the quarterback to be able to recognize looks, get in and out of plays, to be prepared for certain situations and kind of know what to expect. And so the level of preparation that went into that was a lot. Was impressive for me, and just kind of seeing how they went about their work, how they studied, how specific they were with each of those kind of things they were trying to check off that week, looks they wanted to see, and different things. And I was just impressed by that. And I think you're constantly learning. I don't think there's a right and wrong way to do anything in the NFL. Like there's
Right.
so many different ways that have had a ton of success. So I don't say that to say that's the right way. But I just thought that it was impressive, kind of how they did it, how detailed they were, and how much time and effort really went into that.
But it is a learning process constantly, and I think some things that we as sports media and also fans that watch games and cover games, they think that automatically, because you're a high first round draft pick, that everything is supposed to work. And it's funny because I think so many people, if they would put themselves in your spot at the age that you were drafted at, I think they would look at themselves very differently than how they look at you when they see you as, oh, this guy's a quarterback, we drafted him, so he's got to be great, right? I think there's a process and an understanding of how young you guys are when you come into the league that a lot of people don't really take into account.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but there are guys who come in at a young age and are good right off the bat. Have a lot of success straight off the bat. So huge credit to them. And every situation's different. It works out different for different guys. But there's a lot to learn on the field. And then you're a young guy getting out of college, figuring out a lot of things. So it's a learning curve. But every situation's different, and I think the learning doesn't stop. You learn. Yeah. You're kind of learning throughout your career.
Whether it was good or bad, what was the most important thing you learned about your time in New York?
I think winning in the NFL is hard. Everybody's good in the NFL. It takes a lot. A lot goes into every game, and to win, you've got to be doing a lot of things right. You got to be on the same page and ready to go. So I think that, and just kind of learning. I learned how to learn in a lot of situations, and kind of learning different systems, different coaches coming in, and seeing different approaches, and learning from each of those.
Yeah, well, obviously there are things that have applied, and they're working now. Statistically, your best season was 2023. You completed 67.5% of your passes, 3,200 yards, 15 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions, and 7 rushing touchdowns. You're on pace to sort of obliterate all of those things this year. You're completing well over 70% of your throws. You already have 8 touchdown passes. You already have 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns. What makes this a good season for you? What are the goals that you've set for yourself?
I don't really have statistical goals. I've never really tried to do that. I mean, obviously, if you rather have better stats than worse stats, for sure. So yeah. But I think I've always tried to just focus as closely down the road as I could, kind of when it comes to that kind of stuff and playing well. But I think goals are kind of what you'd expect, and maybe it's boring, but just playing good football and leading this team into the season, I think that we're capable of having. And I think we've started well, and we got to continue to progress as a team, but we're still really confident in our ability to do that, continue to improve, and then make a run.
I'm assuming that you play a little golf, right?
Play some golf, yeah. I keep thinking I'm going to get better at golf. I'm still not very good. But.
Well, listen, then I am your hope, okay? Because I sucked for years, and then I finally decided to play, and I dropped my number down to about a 7. So the reason I bring that up is that boring golf is the best golf. Fairways, greens. Fairways, greens. And when I hear you say, I know my goals are boring, that doesn't mean they're bad. You know what I mean? That means they're probably the best thing, but it's hard to sort of explain that this is all I want to do is like complete the next drive, complete the next pass. People always want the sexier answer, right? But sometimes the best answer is the most boring answer.
Right. I agree 100%. I think, I think I've always, even within a game, it's like you start thinking about the drive, or you start thinking about scoring, or you start thinking about we've got to make this work, and you get outside of like, hey, what does this play need to do right here? And I think that, you can apply that in a lot of different situations, and it's kind of general and vague, but I do think that's kind of the best approach that I've found.
Well, it's certainly working so far this season, and you had opportunities, right? Because there's a quarterback shortage in the NFL, in my opinion. We have 32 starting quarterbacks. I'm not sure they're all 32 starting quarterbacks, if you know what I mean. So when your time was up, you had options as you looked around. What made Indianapolis the right choice in your mind?
I think some of the things we talked about. I think the team, for one, you look at the players and you're like, wow, a lot of good players here. I think the opportunity to compete and play was probably the most important thing that I was looking at. Is where is that where do I think that's real, and where do I have the best shot? And then coaches. I mean, I spent some time with Shane in the draft when he was with the Chargers, so I knew him a little bit, and then knew a couple other coaches on the staff here, and just thought that was a good fit. I'd seen Shane has had a lot of success with a lot of different quarterbacks. When you look at Phillip Rivers and you look at Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew. Anthony, I mean, all these guys play differently, and Shane's found a way to play to their strengths in those situations.
Yeah, and there's, you look at the Colts as an organization, going all the way back to Johnny Unitas, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck. There's a lot of quarterback. Jim Harbaugh had some real good success with the Colts. There's a lot of quarterbacks that have come through that organization and have played that position pretty well. How much, or do you think about that at all in terms of what you're trying to do?
Not much, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, it's cool to play at a place where there is that history, and there's a tradition of great quarterback play. But on a day-to-day basis, I'm not thinking about that kind of as I go. But great respect and admiration for all those guys. Obviously, grew up watching Peyton a ton, and when they were rolling here, and it was Colts Patriots every year, it seemed like, and those were always the big games. I remember watching that, and then watching Andrew Luck come in here and play really well. I think huge fans of those guys.
Well, you mentioned you watch Peyton a lot, and obviously there are some people that may not know the sort of the correlation you guys have with the Manning family, the passing academy. Your coach, Coach Cutcliffe at Duke, obviously very tied to the Manning family. How did that all sort of start for you?
Well, I mean, just through Coach Cut. I mean, I think I met them when they first came to work out, or not when I was there. They'd been coming for a while, but I think that was 2016 or 17 or something like that. And I met them there, and then once I was playing at Duke, you as the Duke quarterback through Coach Cut, you get to go to the Manning Passing Academy. So I do that and meet those guys there, and then the quarterback coach I've trained with since high school, David Morris, with QB Country down in Mobile, was roommates with Eli at Ole Miss, playing for Coach Cutcliffe. So that was another connection I had to Eli there. And then I get drafted to to the Giants, and obviously spending every day with Eli. So that was a cool, connection and from all those aspects, and then gotten to know Peyton a little bit just through Coach Cup mainly. But great appreciation for them, and they are certainly football royalty. And as a quarterback, growing up, those were the guys you wanted to be. So I've looked up to them for a long time.
You mentioned spending all those days with Eli, and obviously when Peyton was playing, he was still doing a ton of commercials. Eli didn't do a bunch of those. He did a couple, and he did a couple spots with Peyton for like Sunday Ticket. But did you know? I mean, did you know ahead of time that he was really that funny? Because I'll say it, I think he's the funnier Manning right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was with him for that year in New York, and you're coming in the rookie, and I wasn't saying a whole lot, so he was the one talking and cracking jokes, and yeah, I mean he was hilarious then when I met him, and I think probably I guess the world sees now kind of what he always kind of was, but or his personality, and he's funny. He's a fun guy to hang out with.
I mean, for a guy like yourself who is quiet, a little soft-spoken, kind of like Eli, Eli came into New York and really, he didn't start right away, didn't say much, and just sort of assimilated his way into that leadership role in the locker room. It feels like that was a really good sort of pattern for you to model yourself after, because I feel like on a lot of levels, the way you handle things around a bunch of people is kind of the same way.
Yeah, I was always impressed by the way Eli went to work and kind of how he handled himself. It was always just about football. It was about the work. He wasn't, too interested in adding on to that or feeding into some of the, some of the parts of being in New York and the media and kind of, he was always very, very protective of kind of like, his team and not making it any harder on anybody else, and kind of just making it about football. And obviously the media and the press and all that is part of the job, and he took it seriously. But some guys that can be a bigger part of the job because either they don't do it the right way or they're too interested in it. And Eli was always about football, and making sure he was ready to play, his teammates could count on him, and he wasn't putting anybody in a bad spot in any way.
And now he's about selling Jersey Mike subs.
Well, now the job's a little different for him. Yeah.
Oh my God! It's like jokingly I say, "Hey, whatever happened to the Mannings? I never see them anywhere. I don't know what happened to them after they retired. They've just gone quietly into the horizon," which is absolutely not the case. We talked about this a little bit earlier. You're in a different situation now, and you're blossoming. We talked about Baker and Sam Darnold. What would you say to some of those quarterbacks out there who had high expectations they're drafted, and maybe it's not going the way they want right now, and it might take a change of scenery for them to sort of find their shoes, find their footing?
I think continuing to work and stay into kind of what you're doing and learning and growing and understanding that, it's not maybe always going to show itself or pay off in that moment or in the next week or in the next month, but all of the work and time and experience is valuable, and you are making progress as long as you're being intentional with it and working. And I think, continuing to focus kind of on what you're doing in that moment. I think the more time you're spending thinking about like, well, my career's not this or my career's not that, and it's distracting you from maybe what's helping you get to where you need to go. So I don't know. Football's funny and it's always changing, and just being ready for the next opportunity.
Well, this next opportunity you were clearly ready for, and now I've got to kind of be the dick here and ask a question that nobody probably wants me to ask, but I'm going to do it anyway. You sort of bet on yourself here, right? It's a 1-year contract, right? And you're in year 7 in the NFL. I'm sure it doesn't seem like it's been 7 years already since you were drafted in 2019, the 6th overall pick in Nashville, but those years go fast. This is kind of a good situation for you, the way this has played out, in potentially a long-term situation. Because, like I said, it's a 1-year contract. You're on pace to set your career highs. I know it's all about the present, but how much do you think about what the present might lead for you in the future?
To be honest, I really haven't thought about it a lot. I know it sounds like it's I'm just saying that, but I really, I really
No, I
haven't.
believe you. I believe you. I know you, dude. Like, I believe you. This is an honest answer.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've loved it. I mean, we've gotten off to a good start. There's a lot of football left, and Shane is always, he reminds us constantly to kind of stay week to week and understanding, kind of what's in front of us. So that's been my mindset. But I'd say I really have enjoyed it here. I think it's a great place, great organization, the Irsay family and everybody. I've really enjoyed it here.
No, listen, I can tell you with great certainty they've enjoyed having you here so far, and we'll see what happens going forward. Look, it's always fun for me, because I covered the draft for so many years, to see these guys get drafted, and you see so many of them, that are first-round picks, and it doesn't work out, and then you see the second part, the second act of the NFL career, and that hits. That's really rewarding for me as a guy who watched these kids come up through the process. So it's fun to see someone who is sort of, like you said, there are those guys like Josh and Patrick and Joe Burrow that just are like this the entire time. But those are the outliers, right? There are so many guys like yourselves who are those high draft picks, and it takes a while to find your footing. So it's rewarding for me, just so who's been through this process, to see people find their way a little bit later. It's almost more rewarding,
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, that was fun night in Nashville. It wasn't maybe wasn't the most popular pick at the time, but
No, what are you talking about?
I was excited, and I'm obviously extremely grateful for the Giants and the opportunity there, and I think very valuable experience and special people in New York for sure.
All right. Well, listen, it's been fun watching this, and I always love it when people bet on themselves too. Like you signed that 1-year deal, you're betting on yourself, and so far betting on yourself has worked out, and we'll see where it goes down the road. But right now, just continued success with the Colts. It's been a lot of fun to watch, and we'll see what happens for the rest of the season. Thanks for being with us.
All right, thanks, Trey. Appreciate you having me.
All right, Daniel, appreciate it, bud. So 23 games into his career as the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, Brian Callahan is fired after a 1-5 start to the season. And we got to say a couple of things here. Yes, the Titans don't look good. No, the Titans didn't look good last year. But here's why firing Brian Callahan 6 games into this season was a terrible mistake by an organization who is pretty good at making terrible mistakes. Look, you hired Brian Callahan last year knowing full well you didn't have a quarterback on your roster. I mean, yes, you had human beings that played quarterback. You didn't have a quarterback. You started Will Levis. You tried Mason Rudolph. So basically, you knew that going into year 2, you needed to get Brian Callahan a quarterback. And you did that. You had the number 1 overall pick, and there were teams, including the Giants, that were offering you quite a delicious package of players and picks to move up to get the number 1 overall pick to take Cam Ward. But as the Tennessee Titans, as an organization, we're going to take Cam Ward. He's our guy. So if you have a coach that you've hired the year before, that you were so sure he was the guy, you made him a head coach in the NFL after a few years as an offensive coordinator with the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, a good run there. You now pair up your quarterback with your head coach. And yet, shit can it? 6 games in? This is not really a Brian Callahan problem, nor is it a Cam Ward problem. It's a Tennessee Titans problem. In fact, the last 4 quarterbacks to go number 1 overall in the draft all had their head coaches fired in their rookie year. Cam Ward this year, Caleb Williams last year with Matt Eberflus, Bryce Young had Frank Reich in 2023, and Trevor Lawrence in 2021 had Urban Meyer. Now, to be fair, that's an outlier because Urban Meyer is the worst head coach in the history of the NFL, and it's not even up for debate. I mean, he's a legendary college football coach. Don't get me wrong, one of the best, and the worst, literally the worst head coach in the history of the NFL. And I have plenty of statistics to back that up if you want. Maybe that's another show and another pod, but that's just a fact. Trevor Lawrence should have never been paired with Urban Meyer to begin with. But what we're seeing are organizational failures here. Matt Eberflus, if you're going to, again, Matt Eberflus' situation was very similar to that of what we have with Brian Callahan and the Tennessee Titans. If you're going to bring him back, that's the mistake. If you don't like him, fire him before you draft the quarterback for him to work with, right? You want to have those two positions in lockstep. You look at the great organizations around the NFL. What did they have? They have a head coach and a quarterback in lockstep. For many, many years in New England, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Indianapolis for many, many years, Tony Dungy, Peyton Manning. Now you have in Buffalo, Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. You need those guys in lockstep. And you never know what Cam Ward is going to be if you keep changing the plans that they have for him. This is not just the Tennessee Titans doing Brian Callahan a disservice. And again, I'm not saying they're a good football team in any way, shape, or form. But he was a rookie head coach last year without a quarterback. Everyone knew you were going to suck, okay? And if you didn't know that, Tennessee, that's on you. You're not being honest with yourselves, okay? So you get this guy. He gets a rookie quarterback that you take number 1 overall in the draft. And 6 games? 6 games is all you get for these guys to figure things out? That's terrible organizational management. It's a Tennessee problem. And, you know, Mike Vrabel, whom you fired, how's that going in New England? They're in first place in the AFC East, coming off a road win over Buffalo, and then you see what happened this past week when the Buffalo Bills lost on Monday Night Football. Suddenly the AFC East is very much in play. And I know what Tennessee Titan fans are going to say right now. Oh, come on, Trey. Mike Vrabel lost 18 of his last 24 games with the Titans. Yes, because they didn't have a quarterback. Because they didn't have an organizational plan for the most important position in team sports in this country. Once again, I say to you, this is not about Mike Vrabel or Brian Callahan. It's about the Tennessee Titans being a terribly run organization. That's a fact, okay? The numbers are what the numbers are. Mike Vrabel, as the Titans head coach, took Ryan Tannehill to an AFC championship game. He took Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback to an AFC championship game, and twice in that AFC championship game, they had a 10-point lead on the Kansas City Chiefs before the Chiefs became the inevitable force that we know them to be. So I don't want to sit here and listen to Tennessee Titan fans saying Mike Vrabel was a losing coach over his last 24 games. What did he do before that when he had a marginal, slightly better than average quarterback, right? When you don't have a quarterback in this league, you cannot win. What is Bill Belichick's record in the NFL without Tom Brady? It sucks, okay? With Brady, as we've mentioned on the Straight Facts Only podcast, he won about 75% of his games. Without Brady, with Cleveland and the New England Patriots, he won about 44% of his games. It's like the quarterback position is really important. So I have no idea what Brian Callahan could have been with Cam Ward in Tennessee or what Cam Ward could have been with Brian Callahan. But the surest way to mess up your franchise quarterback is to fire the head coach and change over so much of the play calling and the coaching staff midway or not even 1/3 of the way through his rookie year. You've just taken the development of that quarterback down. You're not elevating him, you're taking him down. And we're finally seeing fruits of what's happened to Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson now in Chicago, but that has been no certainty. You just can't give a coach 6 games with a rookie quarterback and expect to have it all figured out. There is no patience in football these days, whether it's in the NFL or, quite frankly, in college football as well. Look, I get it. Penn State had 3 losses in a row, 2 of them to teams they probably should have beaten. But you fire James Franklin after a 3-game losing streak, when over the last 3 seasons before that he won 10 games, 11 games, and 13 games, and was a game away from playing for the national championship. And now, because you panicked in Happy Valley, you got to pay him what, like $50 million? Because of you fired him without cause and just because he lost 3 games? That's a panic level at Penn State, similar to what we're seeing so often in the NFL. And you know, look, we've seen these quarterbacks go other places outside the organization where they drafted him and have success. We're seeing it with Daniel Jones right now. We've seen it with Baker Mayfield. We've seen it with Sam Darnold. Geno Smith reclaimed his career in Seattle. The league is filled with quarterbacks who went from a bad situation to a slightly more stable situation. And amazingly, what happened? They got a lot better at quarterback, right? So this to me about what Tennessee did. And again, I want to be 100% clear. They're not a good football team. But that doesn't mean they can't become a good football team. That doesn't mean that Cam and Brian can't find a way to work together. And I get it. Brian had his flaws. There were a couple times last year he was screaming at Will Levis. But to be fair, Will Levis was doing some dumb shit. Okay? There was a 4 or 5 week stretch last year where the Will Levis meme was, this, or I didn't see him making all kinds of wild gestures on the field. It's not like Will Levis wasn't doing things that should make Brian Callahan angry. Now, you can argue maybe he needed to control those emotions, and that's fine. I can understand that point. But what we've seen in Tennessee is they have no patience. Like, again, Mike Vrabel took Ryan Tannehill to the AFC Championship game, and then when he didn't have a quarterback, you booted him. And oh, by the way, this is the same Tennessee Titans organization that traded away A.J. Brown to Philadelphia and thought that they could replace him with Treylon Burks, who is now basically out of football. So, this all of this doesn't look good much more for the Tennessee Titans than it does for Brian Callahan. And it's a panic move at Penn State, too. Look, you need consistency in the NFL, and you need to give people time. Now, if you go the whole season with Brian Callahan and Cam Ward, and let's say they're 2-15, I get it, okay? 6 games? There is no way 6 games is enough time to judge a quarterback coming off his rookie season, or a head coach coming off his first year as a head coach, then pairing him with a rookie quarterback taken number 1 overall. But again, not like some of these other number 1 overall picks that a lot of people were surefire going to be as good as they could possibly be. Cam Ward was the number 1 quarterback taken in a draft that was okay when it came to quarterback play. I just don't think you gave Brian an opportunity, and you didn't give Cam an opportunity. And if I'm looking to point the blame somewhere for what happened in Tennessee, it is absolutely at the organization more than the player or the coach, because I've seen what the Titans have done before. That'll do it for this episode of Straight Facts Homie. Thanks to Daniel Jones for joining us. We appreciate you watching and listening. And if you did like what you saw and heard, make sure you click that like and subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts, especially if you're viewing us on YouTube. It really helps get the word out about the show. So thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time on Straight Facts Homie.